Most parents think online danger is obvious. Strangers, creepy messages, clear red flags. That's not how it usually happens. Sometimes it starts with a joke, a game, a message that disappears. This episode is about seeing the digital world clearly, without fear, without denial. Next on the podcast, let's do this.
Welcome to the No Sitting on the Sideline Dad podcast, a podcast about a journey of discovery and conversations about not sitting on the sideline of life. Let's get involved. Here's host Joe Foley.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Joe Foley. Thanks for being here. If you're your first time here, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you being here, spending time. Here's a stat that should make you pause for a moment. The topic we're talking about today from the research Pew Center shows that 1 in 13 say they've been contacted online by someone they didn't know. Roughly 1 in 6 say the contact made them feel scared and uncomfortable. Studies also show that parents often underestimate what their kids experience online. Today's episode is about what actually happens on your kid's phone and how families stay involved without turning everything into a fight. My guests today, Jeff and Derek, two dads who spent years studying the digital world and also how kids are growing up with it right now. So let's jump into this very important conversation with Derek and Jeff. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about something every parent wrestles with: how to keep our kids safe in the world where half their lives happen on screens. And the truth is, most of us feel like we're always a step behind. My guests today are two dads who came to the problem completely different worlds, ended up building something together because they saw the same danger. Derek Jackson, former U.S. Army intelligence officer tracking extremist group online, sees firsthand how digital platforms can be used as influence, recruit, and manipulate. But becoming a dad shifted the lens. So those tools weren't about global threats anymore. It's about his own child might stumble onto. And Jeff Gottfurcht spent 14 years in finance, but also the first person with rheumatoid arthritis to summit Mount Everest. That's pretty interesting. You think about it, with the hardest mountain ever faced, but it wasn't. The real challenge was reading the story of a young girl who was assaulted, had her photos spread online, died just 8 days later. The tragedy made him rethink everything when he was doing with his life. Together they created CyberDive and Aqua One phone device built in. The kids don't need restriction, but they need to involve parents. Honest conversations. They're tools that help families see the digital world clearly. Today we're going to talk about the digital dangers, mental health, trust, and what really involvement looks like when the internet never sleeps. More importantly, hear two dads talk about what they believe the answer isn't fear, it's connection. Welcome to the podcast, David. Jeff?
Thank you. We're happy to be here. That was an incredible introduction. And again, we're excited to be able to talk to you about a lot of different things and a lot of our thoughts on social media and parenting and how to make the world a better place.
Well, it's definitely two. One question for both of you is it's always on, obviously. And now I see kids always have phones. What is the most scariest part about that? Because they're always walking around like this.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to answer that. There's the thing that most people are probably afraid of, and then there's the things that most people probably should be afraid of. I think just the fact that we see kids having phones in front of their face all the time, as parents, as adults, really as anyone, we have opinions and judgments about that. But most people, can't look back at the patterns of history. I'm sure you probably remember the Walkman. Did you have a
Yes.
Walkman? Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that when kids first started using Walkmans, both kids and adults, frankly, and we could listen to music on the go, kids would have their headphones on all the time.
Mm.
Just like these days, kids have a phone in front of their face all the time. And when that happened, there's headlines, there's studies that have been done. We believed as a society that kids wouldn't be able to talk to each other anymore. We thought that they were addicted to listening to the music on their Walkman. We thought that people wouldn't be able to have face-to-face conversations. That's what we predicted for the Walkman, but no one's really afraid of the Walkman anymore. No one really panics about listening to music through your AirPods anymore because we've replaced that with a new villain, and that new villain is social media, it's AI, it's all of these apps that we are so afraid of today.
Well, you mentioned that. Another question is the new, like the villain before, like the Walkman. I can remember playing video games like first Nintendo or Atari came out. Then we watched Sunday morning cartoons, and then all of a sudden those are the bad guys. Now the new bad
Right.
guys are the phone, and you said AI and stuff like that. But Jeff, what did the tragedy teach you? The tragedy about the girl, about digital world, the world the kid faced today.
I think right now the genie's out of the and there is no going back to how it was. It's kind of like the buggy whip. I mean, you're not going to go back to that. And I think parents and kids, it's a very tough time to be growing up. Anything that a child thinks about in their head, they can now look up and find. And that might be something that's great, learning about quantum physics. That might be learning about different fruits. But on the nefarious side, they can look that up as well and find it within seconds. And I think that kids really have a hard time understanding things that are online that are real, things that are out in the real world that are real, and meshing that together. I think it's again an interesting moment for kids because again, you can use social media to learn about some incredible things. You can be online and learn so much. You can learn another language. You can learn about you can learn about family dynamics, religion, art, sports. All of these things you could ingest. But then there's this whole nefarious side that again can affect kids and could affect them negatively. And when we talk about the far extreme of that, that would be, of course, suicide or self-harm, bullying, body image issues, drugs, anxiety, depression. These are the things that are out there. And if parents think that they're not out there, they have a blind spot. Those things are out there. And if you think the social media companies are going to try to change it, it's going to be Christmas Eve for a very long time because they are not going to change it. It's really up to entities like us who are providing cutting edge solutions as well as who want to be involved. Involvement over limitation. That is something that is a big part of our company. Limitation is not the key. And like we talked about, the Walkman and other items that are like that, those are not the root causes of things. There are other fundamental issues that are out there.
Because at the end of the day, anyone who's had kids understands that the best way to get your kids to do something is to tell them they're not allowed to do it. As soon as you tell them they're not allowed, then they're going to scheme and try to figure out a way to make it happen. And frankly, we've seen with so many patterns over the last 20 and 30 years that when you try to block and you try to filter, you try to stop kids from using apps, they just do it behind your back. So there is no way that we're going to eliminate all the dark corners from the internet. There's no way that we're going to stop every single human from going to those places. But involved parents have the best chance because if we wait for companies to do something about it or the government to do something about it, your kids are going to be grown up before any change happens.
Well, definitely too. You mentioned something about cyberbullying too. Bullying when we were kids, it was face to face. You went from school, you went home. Now the kids live a different life now because you can't really escape it.
And I think that's the key to it. Like you said, in earlier years, your bullying only lasted when you were at school or when you saw that group was bullying you. That is not the case now.
No.
The bullying can continue 24 hours a day. And that goes beyond bullying. There are things that, again, kids are able now to see every minute of the day. If we're talking about boys or girls who might have some sort of eating disorders, and in years past, all they would do is look in magazines. Well, now you can just sit there and ingest that information every moment. This is what I'm supposed to look like. This is what I want to look like. And that, again, is from bullying to eating disorders to explicit sexual content. That is all out there. I think one of the things that is so prevalent that we see online is suggestive sexual content that really preaches to boys and girls that girls like to be choked, girls want to be hit, girls want to be doing this. And guess conversely, boys are learning that.
Mhm.
Girls want to be choked, girls want to be hit, girls should be doing that. And that is sort of a lobotomization that is happening right now, currently, as we're doing this this podcast right now. And parents don't see that. Parents don't understand that. But that is a changing of the fabric of civilization when you have kids that are being taught these things and not being taught by their parents. They're being taught by an algorithm and a group of people who are just trying to make money
Oh yeah.
on social media
No.
and be influencers. So they're creating things that are suggestive and highly sort of or
Get
highly
people's attention.
highly attractive. But those people have a different intent. They're doing that for money as well. So I think we're in a tough situation, and every story has a villain, and every story needs a hero. And we like to be the hero in that with our product that what we made.
Well, definitely too. I can definitely see that. Like you talk about the algorithm and stuff like that, because I see my son on his phone and I see him watch YouTube videos and people using loud voices and screaming. And I can all of a sudden he's using loud voices and screaming. I'm like, dude, that's not how real world works. That's not how that's not how it really works. And then we have conversations because I mean, sometimes I listen to what he's listening to. I'm like, well, what is that? And I try to have a conversation about it because I don't have the app, but I do understand that it's a really a non it's no filter on it, and the world is really huge when it comes to the internet.
Yeah, no, that's very true. It's a funny phenomenon, I think, because I see it with my kids too. They're 8, 9, 11. They use YouTube all the time. I hear the YouTube videos that they're listening to. I watch them, especially with our phone. I'm able to see every single thing that they watch and do. And it is an interesting phenomenon that it seems like the best way to become a viral influencer, especially for young kids these days, is to yell all the time. I don't know if it's because I've suddenly just become an old man that sticks out, Dave. But I've noticed that too, and I think it's great that you're sitting down and having those conversations about it. I like to think from kids' perspective a lot. I think all of us, when we were growing up, when our parents would try to force us to do things that we didn't want to do, it didn't feel good. We'd rebel against it. I think most kids out there aren't going to suffer from the worst things that are happening on the internet. But also, there is no algorithm that's going to detect it every single time because their language changes. The things that they use to communicate these things changes all the time. And so what we need is a revolution of parents who actually want to see what's going on. They're not afraid to see what's going on. They're not going to shut down everything that's benign, but they're out there and they're watching and they're looking and communicating with each other so that we can catch these things when they come up rather than waiting for the worst to happen.
Well, definitely too, definitely too. What made you realize you needed to build this device instead of an app?
I think for what we needed to do was on the app side, we understood we had to deliver something to parents that captured everything. I sort of think about it if you only put an alarm on the front part of your house.
Yeah.
That doesn't do the job. We really understood that parents needed to see things that were encrypted, things that disappeared. And for us, we wanted to take on that challenge of creating a product, a phone, where every parent gets to see what their child is doing on our phone, the Aqua One. Everything. It doesn't matter if that's by text, if that's on search, if that's any social media app, if it's encrypted, whatever it might be. And parents deserve that.
Yeah.
We're sort of living in this, what I think is like a morally inverted universe here, where we've been talking about privacy, privacy, privacy. But as Derek can talk about very well, privacy really isn't a real thing.
Let's pretend.
It's a pretend thing. It really is. And for us, we understood that parents have a fundamental right to understand what their children are being ingested with. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, we had a TV in the living room. My parents got to see what we were watching. There was no hiding that. There was no escaping that or anything like that. But again, today we live in a world where a child can look up anything. And conversely, people can send children things that they're not even looking for.
Yeah.
So for us, we really wanted to build something that was reliable, was dependable as electricity, and got the job done. Because we know parents have a screaming pain, and we did not want them to get stuck in the driveway with our product. They have to be able to see everything. It doesn't work if they're not seeing everything. It just is a fundamental loss of philosophy.
Well, that's definitely true, and then definitely true. It's most important, especially being a parent. You want to keep your kids safe and stuff like that. But what do you think were the misunderstandings about kids in the online world?
So say that again.
What do you think there's some misunderstandings, like parents misunderstand the kids in the online world?
Oh, I think one of the biggest it's hard to find an exact answer because there is so much that parents misunderstand about kids, and especially when it comes to the online world. I think, I think a lot about there's this recent phenomenon happening with 6-7.
I
You've
don't even know what
probably
that
heard.
means, but
Yes. Uh, there I'm reminded of because my kids are in different classes at their school, obviously. One of their teachers takes the approach where she's banned 6-7 from the classroom.
Mhm.
Like the kids aren't allowed to say it. She doesn't say it. If she hears kids say it, they get in trouble. Granted, we as adults, like, it doesn't really make sense to us why it's so popular. But then the other teacher, she takes the approach of she accepts it and she says it too. And she makes the jokes. She doesn't have to understand why it's so popular, but it's funny. To me, that's one of the biggest misunderstandings when it comes to parents and their kids' activity on the internet. Like, even for us original millennials that grew up with the internet, there's things happening today that we don't even understand. But that doesn't mean that they're bad. That just means that we should try our best to understand them, knowing that if we do that and we have those conversations with our kids, then they're more likely to tell us things that actually are scary.
And I think going further and piggybacking on that, yes, there is this world online which is scary, but I think there is also this beautiful mosaic of things that kids can learn now. I am very comfortable in saying my children are smarter than I was when I was their age. They know about a lot more, especially in the world.
Mhm.
They understand a lot of global things. They understand things about current events. I didn't know all. I wouldn't read the newspaper every day or read things like that. They know about those things. And what to me is most interesting, they know about it when it happens right away. Something happens in 20 minutes. Guess what? Our kids know about
Oh yeah.
it. Yeah, and to me, that is a fundamental, wonderful thing about society that again, we are being we are able to see things that are happening. Some of those things are bad. I mean, some of those things are bad things that happen. That doesn't mean that it's bad to see it though, especially if we're talking about genocide or things of that nature. But I think that we as parents, I think also have a fear about what our kids are seeing online. That's a natural thing. And every parent has that. I don't want them to see this. I don't want them to do that. And everyone, I mean, that's just how parenting is. I also think kids are actually maybe a little bit more responsible than we think they are. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think we give them enough credit.
Yeah.
I do think, again, there's that sector of kids that are doing really bad things.
Mhm.
There, there is no doubt about that, 100%. But I also think there's this sector of kids who are not doing bad things, who are just on there learning about current events and learning about the world and how things work, how electricity was discovered. I mean, just everything that's out there. And I think that's great for a kid to be able to feed their brains with mass amounts of knowledge.
Sure.
But again, there are two sides to that
Mhm.
because there's a real negative side as well. But very terrible things that happen online, if that's with trafficking and some of the other things we listed.
Well, definitely too. I think this summer that my son was teaching me how to fish, even though I didn't know how to do it, but he was watching all those YouTube videos. He's like, "Dad, you're tying the knot wrong." I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just hoping
Yeah,
it stays on right." The YouTube
Right.
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, and that's great. I mean, and
Mhm.
that is the uniqueness of the world today. That kids, and I mean, they can teach us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's like that's sort of like a dichotomy of thinking because it was always that we teach our kids. But I find that when I'm with my children, and I have 3 children, when I'm talking to them, I mean, they're teaching me things all the time about things that are
Mm.
happening online and current events, which I think is intoxicating for me as a parent because I think it's great to be able to talk to your kids about things that are happening in the world.
Yeah. And one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, what is the right age for me to give my child a phone?
Mhm.
What is the right age for them to start using the internet or social media or have their own tablet and YouTube? Every single expert out there is going to have an opinion. They're going to try to give you an answer, but those answers have been changing. It used to say that there's only a certain amount of time the young kids should have, and then it got a little bigger and got a little smaller. And now people say it doesn't really matter. It matters what they're doing. We are both families that are proof that it does not matter what age you give it to them.
Mhm.
I gave my kids access to phones and the internet and technology way younger than anyone else I know. So did Jeff,
Yeah.
because we're believers in it. We're believers in having access to the internet. The fact that Jeff's kids notice these things is partly a product of the fact that they've been able to have access for most of their life. They know how to use it so intimately in ways that we don't, because they got to grow up with it. And we think that's a good thing.
Well, definitely too, because you want to fall behind in the world right now because technology is such a relevant thing to talk about and use. And definitely too, about your app, about your device and stuff like that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our Aqua One phone, it's a custom operating system that we've put on Google Pixels. So, if anyone's listening and they decide to get one of these phones for their kids for Christmas, they get to tell their child that they're getting them a new Google Pixel,
Yeah.
which is fantastic because kids don't want a cheap plastic phone. They want the phone that has the best camera, and arguably even better than the iPhone. Google Pixels have the best camera these days. But one of the main things that the phone does is something called instant replay.
Okay.
So if any, you said your son has a phone or tablet. Has there ever been a time that you walked in the room and he was on his tablet or his phone, and the moment that you opened the door and walked in, he like locked the screen?
Yeah, once, probably, yeah. What, I can't remember. Probably, yeah.
I think most parents, when they give their kids a tablet, have that experience, and it's not necessarily that he was doing something terrible. It's just this weird response that we have that when someone walks in, a lot of time kids will lock the screen. Well, now with the Aqua One, you don't have to ask him what he was doing. You don't have to try to take the phone away and open it back up and hope that whatever he was doing was still there. You can just log into the app that you have on your phone and watch the replay. You can find the exact time that you walked in the room and look at exactly what was on the screen at that exact moment. You can do that for any time of day.
What kind of feedback from parents have you got about that? Because that's a really interesting feature.
So it's accomplished a lot of different things. Uh, One very interesting story ties into the other feature we have. It's called nudity
Hmm.
prevention. So we actually have an algorithm running on the phone that prevents anyone from taking or sending nude photos with it. So anytime nudity shows up, the phone's going to lock. Parents are going to receive an alert in multiple ways that nudity was showing up on their kid's phone, and we did that for a very specific reason. One of our strategic partners and members on our board of advisors, his name is Brandon
Hmm.
Guffey, and his son tragically was sextorted and ended up committing suicide.
Oh, wow.
And so we built this feature for him because when he sat down and told us exactly how that happened, we realized that we could have stopped that. We could have prevented his son from taking and sending that photo, which would have prevented that person from trying to get money out of him. And that was the reason why his son ended up taking his life. And we've had similar experiences happen with our customers. We had a customer, his daughter was playing
Hmm.
Roblox, chatting with someone in the public chat on Roblox. As these things normally progress, decided to switch to chatting on Discord, decided to get on a video call, and it wasn't another teenager. Turns out it was an adult man, and he exposed himself on the video call to this teenage girl. At that exact moment, the phone locked, and not only did the parents find out about it, but we were able to provide frame by frame video evidence of exactly how that built up to that moment for law enforcement to pursue this guy.
And for us to talk about that feature, the nudity prevention feature in Brandon Guffey, that event where his son, someone reached out to his son, pretending to be a girl that was out of his league, asked him for a nude photograph. He sent the photograph and they started demanding money. And within a few minutes, he took his own life. After that, those perpetrators continued to reach out to Brandon Guffey and say to him, "Do you know your son was begging for his life?" Now, what I'm trying to convey to you, this isn't just a story. This is
Hmm.
real. This actually happened. Those perpetrators were just caught in Africa and brought to South Carolina and are being prosecuted. But for us and what we built, we knew that having that instant replay, which is also kind of like a TiVo or a DVR, where the parent gets to see everything that their child is doing, but having that nudity prevention feature was such a key component because there are so many perpetrators out there who are trying to get kids to send them nude photos. And we knew this was a key element of what we wanted to build to stop that from happening, because Brandon Duffy lost his son. Gavin is gone.
Yeah.
Gavin died. Gavin took his life over sending a photograph of himself. It was just one photograph. But that's how a young person's mind is, that their life is going to be ruined. Everyone's going to see it. I mean, it's over. And we really wanted to build product that got the job done. We understand there might be other product adjacent actors who are out there, but we wanted to build something parents got to turn the wall sideways and turn that into a bridge and see what their kids were doing and have the protection on that nudity side. So for us, that's a very serious thing for us, and we don't take it lightly. And we wanted to build something that was absolutely great, that gave parents that incredible peace of mind.
Because you always have the replay and the kids, privacy. Some kids want privacy and stuff like that. But how does that change the family conversation between the parents and the kids?
It changes it in a lot of amazing ways, actually. We always say that kids want privacy, and we see it in headlines a lot. But again, at least what I believe from my experience, I was an intelligence officer in the Army for 5 years. I focused on things ISIS was doing on social media. I learned a lot about how the internet works and about how people can figure out who you are, figure out the things that you're interested in, figure out where you are. At the end of the day, if kids are going to have access to something as powerful as the internet, then they don't get to just do whatever they want whenever they want without you knowing. Because as a parent, it is your job to make sure that they reach adulthood safely. Now, we don't believe that someone should use this to control their kids. We don't believe that someone should use this to prevent their kids from exploring who they are. But at the end of the day, the internet can be a very dangerous thing, and parents have to know what's going on. What I found in my family and what we've heard from a lot of our customers is that when kids get their device and they understand that it's going to be transparent all the time, it changes the dynamic.
Mhm.
It doesn't prevent kids from trying to hide things from you. And when you ask them about it, they say, I don't know. But it does give you the ability to go find it. It gives you the ability to sit down together, watch the replay, and have a much more productive conversation about what was going on and why. It's better teaching someone with evidence of what is going on than trying to convince them that they did something that they don't want to admit to you.
And one of the things that we found is that I think as adults, we have a hard time understanding kids' mentality.
Mhm.
We are sort of the puppet master in our life is this word called privacy, 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 privacy. What we have found is kids want to have these conversations, but a lot of times they don't know how, nor do parents. I know this. When my kids were young, my typical thing was, how was your day? Okay. That's not good. The answer to that is good. That's like something your nana, you know, that's just, it's just not a good enough conversation to start with. And I think with our product, it allows parents to be able to say, hey, I saw you were looking up this book online. I saw you're into this sport. I saw you were watching this cooking show. Well, there is a great hook for conversation right there. Even if it's just a 2-minute conversation, there is a bond there that happens between child and parent that wasn't there before. And I think that's important, because what will inevitably happen is something is going to happen to that child where they're going to need their parent.
Mhm.
Something is going to happen. Doesn't matter. And it's going to be bad. The degree of how bad it is, that varies. But that child is going to have to at some point say to their parent or caregiver, I need help. Here's what's happening. I need help. If it's with homework, with friends, if it's about me made fun of, if it's about this or that, whatever it is. And we want to be able to create pathways where that happens. And we think the Aqua One allows that, because you're starting to have those conversations and build that sort of mountain of trust.
Well, it's also like talking about the online safety without any shame, right?
Right.
100%.
Because kids, it's just funny. Like you mentioned for 1 second though, you said ask that question like, "How was your day?" And then my son's answer, "Good." What's good about it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing bad happened.
The answer is this. Good. Thank you.
See you later. Bye bye.
We feel good as a parent, because we're like, we
asked.
think we're asking
Yeah.
the question, but it's just not good enough.
Well, and interesting too, but also think about digital transparency. how important it is to have that conversation with the parents and the child.
It's extremely important. The way that we've built our product, there isn't any way for you as a parent to hide from your kids that you're able to see everything. Like we show on the kid's phone, they know exactly what's going on here. And we think that's a good thing. We think that it's good that kids know that their parents have transparent visibility into what they're doing, giving parents the ability to ask like very specific questions. It'll make kids feel like you know them because you're paying attention. Like it's impossible right now to try to take a kid's phone away or their tablet, actually pay attention to all of the things that are important. But when you don't have to take it away and you can still look through and see everything, pick out the things that are important to you, it will show your child that you're paying attention.
Well, definitely too. And also I think parents, I'm like, what do you feel about parents setting the example too? Because we have a problem with these things too. Sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I 100% believe that the most important thing you can do as a parent is set the example of what you want from your children. I think if you want your kids to feel afraid and resist perspectives and resist things that don't make sense to them, then continue to be afraid of the internet, continue to be afraid of giving them a phone. But if you want your kids to be open-minded, you want them to be curious, you want them to explore, then you as a parent need to do the same thing. Maybe get them the phone that they've been asking for all year that you've been resisting. And maybe when you get them a phone, actually support and encourage the things that they like to look at and explore.
Well, definitely too. I think that's important too and stuff like that. But what is like what makes you different? I said one question, what makes you different than any other device out there?
The core features that we explained before make us different. You can get sextorted with any other phone out there that exists. You can't get sextorted with ours. And also there are blind spots with every other phone out there.
We are the only phone that will show the parent in totality what that child is doing on that phone. In totality, 100%. There are no go arounds. There's nothing that child can do
Yeah.
and get around that. Everything that happens on the Aqua, the parent sees. It is like in a perfect alarm system for your house.
Yeah. And parents might be listening to this and they might be thinking, oh, well, what about Snapchat?
Yeah.
Phone and try it out. I guarantee you, every single snap that they send or receive, you will see.
Because sometimes these kids get really smart though. Can they really smart kid get around
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. With the core of how our product works, if it's showing up on their phone screen, then you can see it.
Yeah. Anything that shows on their screen, the parent gets to see.
So wrap it up, final thoughts. Anything you want to leave with the parents? Maybe one piece of advice about using the phone or the internet that would really help them and not feel overwhelmed?
My main piece of advice, honestly, I was just talking to a mom. She has a 9-year-old daughter who's had an iPad for many, many years. And when I was talking to her, I asked her, has your daughter asked for a phone yet? She said, oh yeah, she's been asking for a phone for so long. And I asked her, why haven't you gotten it for her yet? She said, well, I keep trying to show my daughter that her iPad can do everything that she wants to do with her phone. And she said that the reason why her daughter keeps asking for a phone is because, everyone else has one. She wants to be like everyone else. She wants to be more adult. To a lot of parents, that doesn't sound like a good enough reason to do it. But I would say to parents out there, maybe just take a chance. Maybe just take a chance, get a phone. Obviously, I'm always going to say, look into the Aqua One phone, but get your kids a phone because at the end of the day, you're still their parent. And if you decide that this was a bad idea, you can take it away.
Well, definitely too. Also, where they can connect to you, find more about your phone and more about you guys?
CyberDive.co, CYBERDIVE.co. That's our website. You can learn more about Jeff and I. And especially you can look at the Aqua One phone. So for parents out there that are in the market for a phone, highly suggest you taking advantage of that.
I want to end with one thing. If you're a parent who wants to actually know what your child is doing online, and your child currently has a phone or you're thinking about getting a phone, you have to look at our phone. I mean, it is a revolutionary piece of equipment that actually shows parents what is happening. And yes, that might be scary sometimes. But again, it's okay to have that fear. It's okay to feel uncomfortable because you're dealing with your precious cargo, your children, and they deserve parenting and tools that allow great outcomes.
True. The more tools they have, better off they can deal with it. Jeff,
Once.
And Derek, thank you much for being on the podcast today. I really do appreciate it. All links will be in the show notes for this episode. Thank you, guys. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before wrapping up, I want to thank Jeff and Derek for being on the podcast today. I really do appreciate it. And also joining me for an honest conversation about a tough topic. If you want to learn more about them and their work or explore the tools we were talking about today, visit cyberdive.co. You can find the direct links in the show notes. If you have any questions, a story, or something this episode stirred up for you, reach out and go through nosittingonthesideline.com. I read every message. You can also find the full show notes and resources at nosittingonthesideline.com/172. Here's my challenge to you. Don't just nod along. Take one small action after this episode ends. That's how change actually happens. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for joining me today. Take care. God bless. See you.